What started off as the Minerva monster has turned into so much more. And for the second year, Monster Fest comes to Canton, Ohio. We're so excited about it. It goes down June 28th at the Canton Palace Theater and June 29th at the Doubletree Hotel. And here to talk about Monster Fest, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome to Mix 94.1, Aaron Deese. Aaron, how are you today?
I'm fantastic, Matt. How are you?
Good, man. So excited to talk to you. And there's so many things I want to talk about when it comes to Monster Fest, small town monsters, and the million things you guys have going on. But I guess where I want to start this conversation is where this all started for you. Obviously, the idea of cryptozoology, the paranormal, those are all kind of alternative fields. And you found yourself as a researcher and an expert in that. How did that all happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't call myself an expert because there are a lot of people that know a lot more than I do,
Sure.
but I'm definitely an enthusiast. I'm definitely passionate about it. It's something I've been interested in since I was a kid. I cut my teeth on shows like Unsolved Mysteries and In Search of, like a lot of people did, and it's kind of just always been in the periphery for me. And then during the wild years of the pandemic, I was looking for a distraction, something to do when I was at home, and I ran across small town monsters documentaries, and that inspired me to start my own podcast, my own blog. And then after a couple of years of doing that, I ended up linking up with Seth and the rest of the Small Town Monsters crew. And now it's my job. So that's the short story.
And now here you are on a regular basis. And let's talk a little bit about the things that you cover with small town monsters, because, this is essentially like the folklore of America. And I think a lot of people not necessarily familiar with these stories. So give us a little bit of insight about what they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really the heart of it. You kind of struck to it. The name of the company is Small Town Monsters because that's the focus is, the communities that these stories impact after they happen. It's not just the event itself. And so when we're talking about cryptozoology, we're very often talking about small communities where they've seen something inexplicable that science can't quite explain. And of course, there are always explanations. Oh, you saw a bear, you
Right.
imagined something. It was a swamp light, something like that. But the fact that these stories stick with us and that they continue to impact people for years, decades, sometimes centuries after the fact, that's really the heart of what it's all about.
Yeah, and let's build on that point because I think that's really important. Through cultures, through decades, through generations, through centuries, these stories exist. And
Mhm.
for one reason or another, they continue to kind of strike at people's core. They continue to resonate with them. They continue to make a connection. Why do you think that's the case?
I think these stories say something about us. There's on the one hand the physicality of some of these monsters. If we're talking about Bigfoot, for example, something that looks kind of like us but is stronger, faster, can survive in the wild. Something we're talking about a lot these days is the idea of werewolves or dogmen, which is kind of my area of speciality. That's sort of the same thing. We see this fusion of man's best friend with human intelligence, and that's why perhaps we see it so much in fictional media. The idea of these monsters as fictional creatures, but really the stories have their roots in reality. They have their roots in eyewitness testimonies where people say, I have seen these things. And I think that line between reality and the inexplicable, I think it's something that captures most people. It's something that's hard to look away from. Even if it's not your full-time hobby or something you're into on a regular basis, you hear these stories and they're very captivating. Even if you respond skeptically, even if you don't believe in any of it, which I know a lot of people that don't, it's still there's something about that that speaks to something in us.
Yeah, I really agree with you there. And I consider myself a skeptical person of most things in life, but I always say I'm wrong about stuff all the time. Like, you just
Same.
have to make room for that. And there's a lot of unexplained in the world. And, you talk about, well, you saw a bear, you saw this. And it's like, well, did I really? So, small town monsters is what we're talking about. Monster Fest going down at the end of the month. We're talking with Aaron Deese. And Aaron, you talk a little bit about Dogmen, and you say you have a little bit of insight on those. Tell us all what they're all about.
Yeah, so the elevator pitch is that a dog man is a dog that walks on two legs. The most common description that we get from eyewitness accounts, and I've spoken to quite a few, is that it looked like a werewolf. Now, a lot of people don't like the term werewolf, especially when they're trying to talk about, the science of cryptozoology, because it
Right.
does have so many fictional overtones to it.
Right.
You can name five werewolf movies without really having to put forth any effort, and I get that. But the description of the werewolf, this upright canine archetype, comes from much, much, much further back in history than, Lon Chaney Jr.'s Wolfman. It's something that our ancestors talked about for a very, very long time. excuse me, jump forward to the modern era and we start getting eyewitness reports out of places like Wisconsin, Texas, Ohio, the land between the lakes, and Tennessee and Kentucky. And of course, we can respond to anything as skeptically as we like. But the fact is that people are saying, I have seen these things. And very often they're disconnected witnesses who do not know each other, who don't have an incentive to lie. So for me, all of that put together has become super captivating over the last few years. And it's been the topic of two books that I have finished writing recently. So
And
the
let's talk a
second
little
one.
bit about those witnesses because I think that's an interesting point. And you talk about them not having any ties to each other, no real motivations to lie. And I know there's going to be people out there that are going to say, like, yeah, but they're the stereotype. They're crazy or they're seeing things or they want to see things. Is that the case as you kind of, made contact with these people?
No, absolutely not. Now, there is an element of that, I'm sure. If you go online and you start reading discussion threads and get on any website of choice where people are talking about this stuff, sure, absolutely. There's some craziness in there. But in my experience, I had someone who I knew personally, who was a military veteran, a business owner, has two kids, college educated guy,
Sure.
no interest in the paranormal whatsoever, in a very casual, offhanded conversation say, I saw this thing by the side of the road once. And I had just finished watching the documentary, The Bray Road Beast from Small Town Monsters. And he described the Bray Road Beast, basically. And it sent me on this whole journey of looking into these stories and looking at the motivations of these witnesses, exactly what you asked about. This gentleman is talked about in one of my books, but his real name is not in there. There's nothing in there you can use to ascertain his actual identity because he didn't want any attention. He doesn't want to make money off of this. I didn't pay him anything. He's a family member who was willing to share it with me on the condition that I did not reveal who he was. So now people are going to say I'm lying and that I'm making up that story. That's fine. But that's one example. We have a gentleman named Martin Groves out of the Land Between the Lakes area who's a law enforcement officer of the 30-year career who will look you dead in the eye and say, I have seen these things. People know who he is. He has a reputation. His character is not in question. And we can cite examples like that over and over again of people with respectable careers, established reputations who have seen these things and are willing to go on the record and say that. Not wild lunatics on the internet who post a random comment about how Dogman got out of a flying saucer and took them to Saturn, which is something that I've read. But,
Well,
that's another topic.
I mean, you have to look at it from this perspective of the person who's saying, "Hey, I saw this." More than like, "Hey, I'm going to get attention, or I'm going to get famous, or I'm going to get rich." It's, "Hey, people are going to look at me and think that I'm crazy." So
Mhm.
for somebody to come out and say that this is what I saw, I mean, that does give it at least some credibility in my eyes.
I agree with you 100%. And that's kind of been the impetus for me in researching and wanting to record some of these stories is that if this person cared enough about what they experienced, that they were willing to take that risk, to face that ridicule, because even the most open minded person in the world hears someone say, I saw a werewolf and goes, now, wait, what now? Hold on, roll that back for a second. You know, and that was where I started. I've always been open to the idea of Bigfoot and some other undiscovered, possibly, mysterious animals, but the idea of a werewolf seemed ridiculous to me. And then the more of these stories I read, the more I was like, something is going on here. People are seeing something. Maybe it's a werewolf, maybe it's a dogman, maybe it's something else, but they are seeing something. So
We're talking with Aaron Deese, author. Aaron, tell us a little bit more about these books and where people can get them, where they can find out more information.
yeah, absolutely. So one is the Texas Dogman Triangle, which is about dogman and werewolf sightings in Texas. And the other is Hunting Grounds, Dogmen of the Lakes. Both are published by Small Town Monsters Publishing. You can get them at smalltownmonsters.com/shop. If you're an ebook person, they're available on Kindle, and you can get physical copies on Amazon as well. If you come see us at Monster Fest on the 28th and the 29th, you can pick them up there, and I can sign them for you. It'll be great.
Absolutely awesome. Get yourself an autographed copy. And let's talk a little bit about Monster Fest. This is the second annual event. It is going down Friday night at the Canton Palace Theater and Saturday at the Doubletree Hotel. And if people come out to Monster Fest, they check out what you guys have going on, what can they expect?
Yeah, it is going to be fantastic. On the 28th, we are screening the world premiere of Cursed Waters, Creature of Lake Okanagan, which is exploration of the history of the creature known as Ogopogo, which is in a very large historic lake in Canada. It's a very interesting story. After that, we'll be having a VIP meet and greet for our VIP pass holders. We'll be doing a Q&A actually right before the screening of that film. And then on the 29th, we'll open the vending hall at 10 a.m. We have over 60 vendors who who are artists, podcasters, writers, all independent small businesses, many people local to Ohio, but we have folks that are coming from all over the country. I'm coming from Texas just for this event. So we'll also be screening several of our movies. We are doing live podcast recordings with people like Jim Harold over at Jim Harold's Campfire and Astonishing Legends, as well as Jeremiah Byron at Bigfoot Society. I'm going to forget to name somebody, but that's a few examples. And then we also have several incredible guests who are doing workshops and who are giving speaking presentations. Our workshops will be more interactive. Speaking will be more of a sit and listen type of thing. But we have Lyle Blackburn, Amy Boo, Sheena Steingass, and our guest of honor this year is Mr. Don Keating, who is a longtime Ohio local. He is a pioneer of early Sasquatch research in the area. We're super excited about it. There's too much going on for me to fit in one sentence, but it's going to be great.
No, it is going to be great. And honestly, it's an event that I feel like people look forward to. And if you were there last year, you know how much fun it was and the good vibes and the positivity. And I really think it's worth noting that even if you are skeptical, even if you're out there and you're like, no, dude, there's no way, you should come check it out. Kids 12 and under are free, and it goes down Friday night at the Canton Palace Theater with that film opening for Cursed Waters, and then Saturday all day at the Doubletree Hotel. It's going to be absolutely amazing. And thank you, Aaron Deese, so much for joining us to talk about it on Mix 94.1.
Thank you, Matt. Had a great time. Appreciate it.